Welcome to glorious Sunshine Canyon, where we're outdoors enjoying a bit of nature. The birds are chirping. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the birds into this podcast. I don't think I'm technically capable enough yet. But welcome to the inaugural Level Up Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about crocodile calling, reptilian mammalian brains, movement patterns, and why it matters. Why we need to massively respect our genetic heritage and how we can work with these and use them as powerful tools in order to progress and go forward. I'm really nervous, can you tell? I'll warm up, okay. So firstly, a few thanks. Thanks to my sponsors. We have Level Up Flow Ropes. That's my brand. You can buy flow ropes from me on my website. We have my best friend Chris Evans, who gifted me the shirt. And that's his cap. So that's in solidarity there. He was a big push for me to do a podcast. We want to thank Drew Hunter for giving me a big nudge and a push to doing a podcast. And Rongan Chatterjee, Dr. Rongan, all kind of said, look, do a podcast. So amongst others, here we are. So thanks to our sponsors, Eldorado Water, the finest water in the world. And you can look that up. That's why I trust it for all my friends and family and my pets. My pet, Silky. Anyway, so let's start goofing around and let's get into this. Oh yes, and I have my orange glasses on just because then you know I'm serious. And thanks to Gold Hill General Store. So anyway, we have a pop of red and orange denoting creativity, which is interesting because we're going to talk about the sacrum, which is the source of your creativity. If you figure out in chakras. Okay, this is really getting waffly. So where to start on this rather complex topic, and hopefully I don't get too rambling and I stay on point. One is it's extremely, extremely valuable to you. And two is there's many, many simple actionable details that you're going to be able to get out of this that's going to really help transform your life and your movement patterns. But we're going to go back it up and tell you a bit of a story. I was in Andorra treating Jan Ferdinand, helping Jan Ferdinand. I left there and I knew I had to give this guy something to sink his teeth into because he's so movement based. We'd sort of taken away a lot of his rehab gym strength protocols because we really wanted him to sort of reframe the way he ran. The thought being he'd kind of worn one way of moving out and come to its very, very end, which is his words, not mine. And so we were refreshing and basically teaching him a new way of moving, which would imply a new way of using your body, right? So I'm on the plane and I'm like, I need to find something that this guy can really sink your teeth into. Back in those days, we used to do sort of crawling patterns or gentle repatterning of movement. It was kind of hard to figure out how to use that and translate that into your movement patterns. It wasn't the easy way. I was talking to Flora Duffy the other day and I said people now got it really easy because back when she first started working with me, a lot of the movements were kind of difficult. Probably the most actionable or the biggest, easiest change was the awesomizer. But a lot of the time we're diving down into repatterning one small part of your movement and then hoping it showed up in your running. So anyway, so we're looking for something for Jan to sink his teeth into. And I did this post and I tagged head over foot. And on that head over foot post, I noticed someone else has been posting head over foot, and I'm like, I'm the only person that talks about head over foot and running, well, certainly in triathlon. And lo and behold, I discovered David Weck and the flow rope, and I looked at that flow rope and I was like, that is exactly what we need for Jan. So I went home, played around with the flow rope, figured out a few moves and just said to Jan, okay, right, here, simple, get after it, go for it. And very, very quickly, Jan could sort of integrate those movement patterns and express it, and it made sense to him, and it was something he could sort of sink his teeth into. Now, everything we're going to discuss here, you can really sink your teeth into, and it's going to make a big, big difference, which is why I'm so pumped and excited about it. And one of the reasons why I'm doing a podcast, because it's gone from the sort of not sure, ephemeral, maybe try this out. It's kind of difficult to really simple, actionable steps. But anyway, along those lines of sort of when you open up a way of using creativity is just to open up and trust that the universe will hand you the answers. I don't know how it works. From a neuroscience, it could be your superconscious, subconscious. I don't know. There's words for it. You might as well just explain it some way. But basically, realizing that the back end of your brain can really, really process powerful, large problems, and it's best solved indirectly, and then sort of throwing that out there and then ruminating it over time, and then you'll get handed the answer. And that's why many great insights are said to come from outside, and that's why they're called insights, okay? Or inspiration, or like there's a flash of a light bulb, or the muses handed or gifted you this knowledge, and that's what it seems like. So we don't have to get into the details of it, but I work like that. So I was looking for this linchpin, this because we have, between backward walking, flow roping, and resisted walking, we had a really, really, call them the Holy Trinity, a really powerful set of way of really reframing running. And anyway, we came across, like, the universe just said, use the happy hip hack. And because it really helps when we talk about contralateral movement, getting your belly button to move towards your belly button to move towards your lead leg in movement, which many people can't do. It's almost like a movement pattern that breaks down under a duress nervous system, or some people never learn to move contralaterally properly. But we had to cue it and explain it and say you must do it this way and not that way. And happy hip hack's pretty simple. You just sort of take a step, and on the same side as you're stepping, you lift your shoulder. It's not really a hand movement, it's a shoulder. So your shoulder's away from your hip and you're stepping on that side. And it immediately puts your belly button exactly where it's supposed to do, and it puts your head over the stepping foot, which is kind of what we learned with the flow rope. So the nice part about that is it is so obvious and it's so simple. So we were doing landmine press, we were doing triple extension, we were doing farmer's walk. So all of this suddenly carried in, because now you could do farmer's walk with a happy hip hack, and you could do walking the tie or resisted walking with happy hip hack patterns. The thing is that the results that we got were far greater than what we'd expect for something that was just a bit of a finishing touch. Okay, and that's the reason for the sort of podcast, is like, we got extraordinary results. I mean, we had some person that introduced happy hip hack walking, and in 3 days, 6 months of Achilles pain and 6 months of labrum pain disappeared. We had people with stress reaction, so now it's a pretty painful femoral neck, able to walk in the happy hip pattern pain-free, but as soon as they walked normally, it was painful. So you're starting to realize, like, this really, really powerfully modified your gait. And the list just goes on. So there's just example after example of people suddenly having breakthroughs in running, pain leaving their body, their hurting knee stops hurting, blood lactate improving, people finally getting that have been working with me for quite a while. Oh, that's what I'm supposed to do when I'm running. So quite a lot going on. And one of the also really, really powerful changes that we sort of observed was a big change in mental and emotional shift and in HRV. And so you're thinking, well, why is all of this going on? So a lot of what we're going to discuss in this podcast is sort of ruminating on why something so simple would be. So I think a big difference where we can sort of start off as a segue into it is it's not contralateral that you're doing, it's homolateral. So same shoulder to same hip. Now, sequentially, as a babies, so we're all born with a blank slate. Mostly, we can have intrauterine trauma, traumatic birth experiences, generational trauma, generational not trauma, whatever, like generational history or ancestry that sort of we come preloaded with quite a bit. You'll have twins that are nothing similar to each other, or very close siblings that have totally different personalities. So we kind of born not that blank a slate, right? But we don't know how to crawl, and basically babies, everyone figures it out, and that's called central pattern generators. So we basically, and they pretty much happen at a spinal level, they're not part of the brain, and so a lot of what we move, like I used to say in my running workshops, we run on cross-extensor reflexes, or a lot of what running is happens at a reflex. It's not on the brain level. I didn't really understand, I think, as deeply as I sort of do now, but it's much more, we have these central generator patterns that generate movement. So that's why babies end up crawling and walking without any instruction. They don't need siblings, they don't need to be coached, they don't need to do drills. Okay. They don't need strength, core strength. Okay, they just figure it out, and off they get, and up they get, and get going, right? So What's an interesting thing is babies first lie on their back, and then you sort of fire up one hand, other hand, probably hand to mouth, and a lot of the movement's homolateral, so they'll often pattern their right arm and right leg, for example. It's only when a baby rolls over, and transverse motion or rotation is really, really important in a critical development stage, and I think a lot of people are missing out on that. So it seems to me like, especially the way some people run, it's very, very sort of static core or dialed off core with not a lot of rotation where there should be rotation. Remember, but a lot of kids go from lying on their back to being sat up to eat food into a car seat or a pram and never really roll around on the floor very much. So it kind of makes sense why you wouldn't think rolling is rotation is part of walking. I mean, walking or running or gait. This is not just about runners, right? So if you're someone that feels that they're very static and stiff and not good at rotating or turning, we can practice rolling patterns. Really good idea. Or use dragon roll with the flow rope. Anyway, so here we are. We're going along, and we end up with this. Where were we? We end up with. So baby developmentally, right? We fire up the right and the left, and the left and the right, and then we roll over. And roll over, we start with extending, and we start with a crawling pattern. And a lot of rehab revolves around your crawling pattern. We talk about a posterior oblique sling. Your right lat and your left glute are mapped together, sort of diagonally across your body. If you've ever done physio, you've probably done bird dogs, where your right hand's on the ground, your right knee's on the ground, and then you cross stabilizing. So that's all contralateral stability, which is very, very important. And on a superficial level, that's how we crawl. But I'm going to wind back. So first, humans we were amphibians or fishes, right? So we have this lateral line. So if I jab you on the side, you're likely to be ticklish. Fishes have a lateral line. So if a fin touches the side of them, they turn to the side. And that's how they all sort of, one of the reasons apparently why they all swim like a shoal. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's totally true, but there we go. And so we have a side bending fishy line. And then also we have a reptilian part of our crawling pattern. And a reptile, like if we were a crocodile, has very short arms but a long torso, and it sort of walks from side to side with its torso, and the arms don't do very much, right? So when we crawl, and this is what the happy hip hack does, it's homolateral movement, but it's homolateral shoulder to hip pattern. So your shoulder goes away from your hip on the same side, and your head goes towards the opposite side. That's happy hip hack. And I think adding that element of crocodile crawling, okay, because it's not, if you're thinking baby crawling, you're thinking opposite hand, opposite foot. This is same shoulder to same hip is what you're really getting at in this movement pattern. And that's more reptilian. And so you start to notice, okay, so why would a reptilian crawling pattern suddenly make so much sense for people? Why would it click so much? Okay, and this is where we're about to deep dive into a bit of woo. Now, the purpose of this podcast is not to sell you some... Ruby's barking. The last time Ruby barked, it was because of a bear. Hopefully she settles down. Can you hear her? No, she's not barking. So I know how to stop her barking now. I'll just put the microphone towards her. Okay. So now we're about to deep dive into the rabbit hole. This podcast, the aim of this podcast is not for me to sell you something. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. I am telling you, Happy Hip Hack can produce profound positive benefits to your running, your injury rates, the way you show up in the world. Okay. This podcast is my attempt to explain why it's so powerful, not to upsell that it is so powerful. You can just skip this part and go and watch a YouTube video and start crawling patterns and happy hip hacking, and that's enough. This is for, I don't know, the cerebral part of why would something work so well. So it's a bit of fun. If I factually mess something up totally, if you're an expert in this field, please let me know so I can learn and upskill and move on. Let's have some sip of El Dorado water, the finest drinking water in the world. I only trust El Dorado water with my family and friends and my cat. Right. So here we are. Now, the question that we have to ask is, are you curious? Okay. And why do I ask that? Because I'm curious. No, because your autonomic nervous system has a sympathetic state, And we need a balance between the two, and both should kind of be on, or they interplay and they work together. It's not either or. Okay, you can't be totally, well, you can probably be totally sympathetic or parasympathetic, and both can be dysfunctional, but you need a play between the two, and they're both vital. But if you need to know if I'm stuck in a sympathetic state or a parasympathetic state, you can just ask yourself this question: am I curious? Am I playful? Because parasympathetic mode implies curiosity and playfulness. Sympathetic mode, there's kind of four arms to sympathetic mode. You have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And freeze is really important because it gets back to our crocodile. Crocodiles become immobile or frozen when they become overloaded their nervous system. Your reptilian part of your brain just freezes or goes dormant. Okay, but so if you're on social media, and social media plays into this conversation, let's say you're on social media and you have a strong reaction to a post, you're not in a parasympathetic mode. You're not curious. You're not like, oh, I wonder why they would say that. You're not empathetic. And so there's a massive social part of our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, or rest and digest. It should be rest, digest, curiosity, and play, or fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Okay. So fawn means you're going to lie down. Fight means you're going to fight. Flight means you're going to run away. And freeze means you're going to play possum. Okay, and all of them are just survival tactics. So there's nothing wrong or right with them. They're just survival tactics. So what does this all matter? So here we go. Stephen Porges from the Polyvagal theory. Okay, so he's got like the vagus nerve is one of the biggest controlling nerves of our autonomic nervous system, or our parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. It's one of the longest nerves in your body, and it wraps around, it goes to your organs, it goes to your diaphragm, and it really, really helps control whether you're resting, or digesting, or fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Okay, the 4 Fs. And what happens is, for most people, we stimulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve actually is a brake on your heart. Okay, so it doesn't act it actually breaks your heart. And so when the vagus nerve lets go, your heart rate increases. Okay, but a parasympathetic, rest, digest, curiosity, and play part of your nervous system will imply that your heart rate variability goes up. So that's one of the easiest, apart from being curious, is you can measure your heart rate variability. And what it means is that your heart rate will vary from beat to beat, which denotes a relaxed heart. Okay, so that would indicate parasympathetic nervous system. How many times my heartbeat changes. As we get stressed, each beat becomes more and more and more the same, and it's a very clear indication that you're stressed or under stress. Okay, so going back, remember the happy hip hack story. Here we are. People are doing happy hip hacks, and suddenly the heart rate variability after their sleeping starts to improve. So what gives? So anyway, Steve Porges, the polyvagal theory. He has, which is kind of fascinating, so he's deep dive into the role of the autonomic nervous system, and the healthy autonomic nervous system is very much on board with what I say is like, you can't teach a drowning person to swim, or unless you have true movement and breath health, you have no health. Okay, it precedes and predates all health, whether your autonomic nervous system is healthy. And it's one of the reasons I work the way I work, because I always hold the autonomic nervous system as my higher standard to whether I'm doing a good job or not necessarily whether you're in pain or not in pain, or symptomatic or asymptomatic. We want to see a healthier autonomic nervous system. First, do no harm. Right, so he has this fascinating, and I was listening to him because I thought, like, I bet you he has a good idea of why this sort of crawling pattern will suddenly start to affect the autonomic nervous system so much. And we do know from when we move from the center out, when we have contralateral gait, when we sort of have empowered hips, and when we have healthy breathing where our diaphragm and pelvic floor work together, very, very many of my athletes, in fact, all of them, have healthier autonomic nervous systems, and a lot in their life starts to change. So their sleep, their gut biome, their, if you've like immune issues, chronic nerve pain, headaches, like there's a lot of people's hearing improves. Everyone's very, very different. So whatever else improves is varied, but we do see these extra health benefits. And the opposite is also true. You know, we'll see someone that's stressed with a breathing pattern disorder, training very, very hard, using, and we'll get into this in the next podcast, using muscles inappropriately for their design, like let's say really working on the cadence, picking their feet up, which is kind of stressing to your nervous system, and we can see their overall health actually decline. These are anxious, nervous, and insecure people. And we're about being healthy and showing up and being authentic. And this is, you're going to see now why your crawling pattern can really, really influence how we authentically show up in the world and how we move and powerfully shift across your autonomic nervous system. You know, when I did a breathing course with Patrick McKeon, the Oxygen Advantage, the people on there who are supposed to be in control of their breath were all obsessed with activating their parasympathetic nervous system. So they'd splash their face or cold plunge or put their face in an ice bucket or and all to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Well, you need to show up with an active, authentically healthy parasympathetic nervous system. You should be calming the water, not using ice cold water to calm you down out of a reactive state, okay? These people were not curious and not playful. They were very, very serious, okay? So it is interesting again is that, you know, do you own your autonomic nervous system? Are you in a state of play? Is that your authentic showing up, or are you just reacting? Never mind, we'll do a podcast on free will. We don't have free will, so I firmly believe the more relaxed you are and the more authentic you show up, the better your life with no free will plays out for you. But we don't have, basically, we're not the engineer or author of our own thoughts. But that's for another day. Okay, so here we are. Let's just recap. So we've got a powerful move, that just a movement pattern that starts to really powerfully affect joint alignment, how people show up, nervous system tension, HRV scores, movement patterns, confidence in their movement. And it seems to be a little bit, the sum of the whole is a bit bigger than the sum of the parts, right? And we're now on polyvagal theory. So polyvagal theory, this sort of Steve Porges, you need to listen to the guy. He's just like this galaxy brain of information that comes out really fast. So you've got to kind of listen to his podcast at least twice just to figure out what's going on. And we talk about this healthy autonomic nervous system basically through the vagus nerve. Right. Here's the interesting bit. The vagus nerve, unlimited, and it's linked to our reptilian brain. Now, we have this polyvagal theory. We also have this sort of, there is this notion of the reptilian brain. It's this triune theory. I can't think what the guy's name is now. I'll have to add it in the show notes, right? And anyway, so we have this reptilian brain, which is our more ancient brain, and we have this sort of reptilian crawling pattern in us. The interesting thing about a reptile, of course, is that there's no social hierarchy around a reptile. So you're an egg, you're born, there's no motherly love, you don't care about your siblings, you're pretty implacable. And your reptilian sort of dysfunction of your nervous system is freeze. Okay, so we're basically shut down, organs shut down, not enough, because that's what sort of cold-blooded animals do when they're very stressed, is they just shut everything down and ride it out, right? And also this notion of being slightly implacable. So there you are, you're a crocodile and you wait for your prey and the prey comes to you. It's an interesting mindset, okay? But you certainly, there's no social hierarchy. One crocodile doesn't matter that much who's the boss crocodile. You're not being nurtured. You don't have to seek acceptance in a tribe through your behavior patterns, okay? And this is all really, really important, okay? Then the ventral part of your vagus nerve is your mammalian vagus nerve, and it's myelinated, which means signals will travel quicker along a myelinated path, right? And the mammalian part developed when we stopped becoming reptiles and we became mammals. And the mammalian part's really, really interesting. Mammalian part's got a lot to do with facial expression, tone of your voice, hearing, so inflection and tone of how you speak is very, very important for mammalian sort of proper vagal tone or balanced autonomic nervous system. And we understand this, you make faces to a baby has big eyes and a big joyous open face so that you can love and trust it because it's unable to look after itself any other way. So we respond to babies' faces. You look at a baby, go, oh, you're so cute, and you grab its cheek, right? So when you talk to a baby, you make baby noises and cuckoo. When you talk to pets and animals to calm them, you use your baby voice, right? So you suckle on your mother's breast, which releases oxytocin, which socially bonds you to your mother. Oxytocin is the hormone of trust. It's also a high-performance hormone, and look forward to a big chat on oxytocin in a future podcast. Okay, so mammals are obsessed with hierarchy. So we have a chimp tribe. We are obsessed with who's the king chimp, where do I fit in this whole social pattern, and we'll brown nose people above us, and we'll be sort of not that very complimentary and nice to people below us in order to maintain that hierarchy and status. And the worst thing that can happen to a chimp, as everyone knows, is you can get excluded from the tribe or kicked out of the tribe, right? So social isolation is one of the most savage forms of punishment a human can dream up to inflict on another human. One of the reasons why we have prisons, you socially isolate someone, and if you're bad in a prison, you go into solitary confinement, okay? And it's interesting with this whole sort of cancel culture, how savage it is, okay, to cancel people or to cut people off from your social network. It's literally sort of worse than death, right? But anyway, so here we have this mammalian part of the ventral. The mammalian is the ventral vagal, and the reptilian is the dorsal vagal. Now, I gently think that in the current age of social media and people obsessing with where they are, what people think of them, I think people are insecure about what they do. Certainly, like my space of movement and running, you're like obsessed with so-and-so's doing this drill, I'm not doing that drill, am I enough, am I not good enough, if I don't do that drill, will I fit in, if I don't even post that I do that drill, will I fit in? I have athletes that post stuff and I say, why are you doing those exercises? And they say, I'm not, I just posted them. Okay, so this is all to fit in. And at the moment, I think, interestingly enough, you know, we're starting to pair, like if you crocodile crawl, you're pairing that to a reptilian brain, which doesn't really care about social structure. Well, how does someone trying to fit in move? And I think it's way more bidirectional, way more influential than most people think, because let's put it to you this way. Someone that desperately wants to fit in and is trying too hard will almost certainly be rejected as a try-hard. Like, you're trying too hard, we don't buy it. It's not authentic, okay? Someone that's pretty weird, like rocks orange, but just rocks the expressive self, will generally fit in an acceptance. So there's a little bit of a paradox. But the interesting thing is, I think people are so insecure it affects their movement patterns. So I'll give you an example. You can work with someone that's insecure about their movement, and I'll sort of caricature what they'll do. You'll ask them to take a step and get their belly button to turn towards their lead leg, which is contralateral movement. So it's like a screen. Do you move contralaterally or not, right? And they'll go, and then sort of take a step and say, look at you and say, is that right? Okay. Whereas someone that's really confident in themselves and authentic will just take a step and say, now what? You know what I mean? Like, and the nervousness and the inauthenticity of the movement, and the fact that you're relying on someone's external judgment of your movement to tell you whether it's right or wrong, is part of a sort of a deeper, almost pathological part of sort of running and movement in this country. Like, we experts, we say, well, that's weak and your core is weak and you're not doing this and that angle's wrong and you need these drills. You're judging someone. Much of how we move are for reasons that we don't understand. So it's not our place to really judge the person, it's our place to provide solutions so that they can find and express the authentic movement pattern, so they can move with confidence, okay? And then you can refine that. So it's really, really interesting. And I think that this notion of moving with too much tension and insecurity and fear and guardedness is kind of at the root. And I'm wondering if social media is not amplifying it. Because the more people on social media, the more they obsess about what other people think. Am I doing the right thing? Maybe I'm not doing enough. You know the whole drill, okay? Your nervous system gets wired, your pupils are fixed and dilated, which impact your autonomic nervous system response, which is the topic of another podcast. And then along comes, you do crocodile crawling, and we've got a whole crocodile crawling sequence, which I'll take you through and share with you. Told you. We're here to empower you and make your life awesome. And what happens is people start doing crocodile crawling and they stop being so socially hierarchically obsessed. So someone will go get down on the floor and crawl like a crocodile and get up and feel like, I am enough and I have enough, which is exactly how crocodiles feel, okay? Crocodiles don't really have that much self-doubt, do they? Because they're not obsessed with where they are, and there is no crocodile tribe, okay? They didn't have to be cute for their mother to nurture them and love them, or the father to not kick them out the nest, right? So it's really, really interesting. And so not only does it fundamentally help you tap into a way that doesn't hurt and that you can trust. So imagine if you walk one way, your hip is sore, but if you walk in another pattern, it's not sore. You have a sort of a deep sense of trust. Oh, this new pattern is healthier and more authentic and complements the way I was sort of genetically engineered to move. It's also that you then have a sense of trust or sense of authenticity. And so I think crawling patterns used correctly can really powerfully reframe our mental and emotional state and help teach us to run and move well, which is kind of the same thing. Okay, like you got to define like what makes someone great. What when someone moves and you say, oh my, that's the real deal. What they deeply, authentically trust their movement. You go try to tell, let's say Rinny, when Rinny Carfree ran in Kona, you knew she was just doing something else that no one else was doing. Okay, she just go and try and crit Rinny on her running and tell her how to improve her running. She's not interested. Not interested in your opinion whatsoever. She deeply and authentically trusts the way she runs. I've happened to help Rinny back from career-ending injury 3 times. All 3 times, the pain wasn't enough to end her career. It was that she couldn't authentically express herself when she ran. She said, and if I can't run like I'm supposed to, I'm retiring. So there was a slight performance decrease, but it was also she couldn't authentically express her running. And that was enough for her to retire. Like that is not how most people are viewing their running, okay? So these are these sort of thoughts. It's pretty complex. It's not actually, it's really, really simple if you think about it. It's just quite difficult to sort of get across the line of this weird space of, could it just be that just stopping you from expressing authentic movement patterns, and which is the reason you're getting injured so much, and which is then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of I don't trust my movement because I'm always injured. You know, I've got another story of a guy who, and we're going to talk about this in the next podcast, the tonic and phasic muscles, sort of got after some hip flexor exercises after he was told his hip flexors are weak, and immediately gave himself quite a severe labrum injury. And I said to him, look, there's 2 ways you can deal with this. One is my athletes don't get labrum injuries, okay? So let's just put that out there, okay? But there's 2 ways of doing this. Either you can have your PRP injections and you can do all the things, you can rest and strengthen your hips up for 12 weeks and hope that you've moved past this injury. Or we can sit and dial down now how to move in a way that doesn't hurt you and you can be running in a week. And he chose to dial down to learn to move in a way that didn't hurt his hips, and he started running pain-free within a week. Obviously he's got to sort of build it up slowly because he really kind of did hurt his hip quite badly, but that was also through crawling patterns and the happy hip pattern. Okay, if you use, I know we're talking about everything now, but running injuries for the most part, you're the author of your movement, and if you get hurt, you did it to yourself. You moved in a way that hurt yourself. Okay, it's also not more complex than that, right? So moving in a way that doesn't hurt yourself and then strengthen that up and protect and defend that, that's how I like to work, and that's, you know, the way we work. And we have such powerful tools. I'm pretty confident that you can work that way too. Now, I'm going to just refer to my notes. In the show notes somewhere for this, or you can Google it on YouTube, we'll have, I don't know, good Lord, I've got a weird heading here, crawl to consciousness. Okay, it'll be the crawling patterns. Okay, and we're going to go through sort of different crawling patterns and syncing them up with your breath. So your breath, your crawling pattern, and your movement patterns all sync up, and that's going to make a big difference. So step 1 is we're going to do lying on your back, we round and arch and sync our breathing up. So it's a central spinal pattern of rounding and arching and breathing, where we get our diaphragm and our pelvic floor to move together. In a later podcast, we'll discuss how important your pelvic floor is for this sort of autonomic nervous system health. So your diaphragm and pelvic floor, they have to work together. So that's really important, okay? And then we start with the hip. So we do homolateral or one-sided, which is very much along the Feldenkrais line. So learn one side and then learn other side, which is how the baby learns. One side, then the other side. So we do, okay, which is the key essence of a happy hip hack. We have a weasel or a ferret and he just slunk past. Awesome. Okay, cool. And then we do bilateral, okay. Then we're going to go prone. So now we do rounding and arching prone. So that's pressing your sternum into the floor and then rounding your arch. Now, 2 very important parts of this whole sort of crawling pattern and why it works is hands proprioceptively. So pressing your hands, the proprioception is very, very grounding. You getting horizontal changes your mental and emotional and framing state because you're not sort of upright in the hierarchical world, you're now down flat. Okay, so thoughts of hierarchy leave. Kings and queens make you kneel before them so that you understand the hierarchy. They are above you. Okay, if we're all on the floor, we're kind of all the same. Okay, so it's another reason why you might find sort of you're not as fussed about hierarchy after a little crawling session. Okay, but one of the interesting things is pressure on the sacrum and rocking the sacrum is a very, very healthy autonomic nervous system stimulus. And also pressure on your solar plexus or belly is also a very, very powerful autonomic nervous system sort of stimulus for the good, right? So lying, and you have to be safe, especially if you're doing crawling patterns. Remember, the downside of if you crawl and you feel insecure and safe, the reptilian stuck pattern of sort of autonomic dysfunction is freeze. You don't want to be freezed or immobile or sort of hit some state of sort of depression. So you have to feel safe and empowered doing these exercises. If you feel scared, nervous, anxious, you should very quickly feel that anxiety, nervous, and disappears, and you need to feel like you're in a safe space. If you can't do crawling patterns, you don't feel comfortable with them, you need to see a very, very competent therapist, probably a somatovisceral one, and that's very, very skilled in trauma. Okay, don't try and fix yourself at that stage. That's way beyond the scope of this conversation. Okay, but anyway, so we do prone, rounding, and arching with breathing, and that also powerfully contracts and relaxes your psoas muscles with pressure in your abdomen. So it's a very, very powerful autonomic nervous system stimulus, right? And then we do hip rocks, which is contralateral hip movement. Then we do hip rocks. Then we do neck unwinding. So again, your parasympathetic nervous system, the nerves themselves occur in two places, in your neck and in your pelvis. So we've mobilized and activated the sacrum. Now we unwind the neck, and then we practice a prone gentle crawling pattern, and then we practice the big crocodile prone crawling pattern. So that's a sequence of events, layering it up. And I promise you, by the time you get up off that floor after doing that, you'll have a powerful sort of psycho-emotional shift. Okay, it's very unlikely that you're going to get up and say like, yeah, I feel exactly the same as I did when I got down on the floor. You don't have to do the whole pattern. I suggest you do it slowly and carefully the first time, and then afterwards you can just sort of chunk out the bits that you like or that you got stuck with. Okay, so that would be like a crocodile crawling pattern. If you respond well to that, you can then do on your back, okay, hip rocking, and you can put a gentle weight, a comforting weight. So I use a bean bag with a 5 kilogram medicine ball on top on my abdomen, and I'll do the lying on my back hip rocking poses with that on there. And the pressure in your diaphragm helps your diaphragm unwind and relax, and also this abdominal pressure can really, really sort of help you feel like you're in a safe state. Okay, and getting to this sort of safe state where you feel like I am enough and I have enough is really the purpose of crocodile crawling. And then getting up and being able to actually crawl and have those movement patterns available to you via the happy hip hack, and then skipping when you're running with a happy hip hack will animate your central authentic movement patterns. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about central pattern generators in a minute. I know this is a bit of a long podcast. Okay, so let's say now we don't want the reptilian part of our vagus nerve stimulated. We kind of want more the social hierarchy. I want to fit in. I want to be accepted by my chimp friends. And so you want to sort of have more a sense of sort of love, security, fitting in, co-regulation, which is really, really important. Well, one is have real friends in real life. It's really, really important. Okay, but here are some sort of hacks where we can sort of stimulate the mammalian part of our vagus nerve. One is happy baby pose. So just lie on your back, grab your 2 big toes between your hands and just spend some time, or grab your feet and just lie on your back in happy baby pose. Most people start laughing or sort of have a sense of happiness in that position. That's why it's called happy baby pose. Okay, so that'll make a big difference. Humming. Okay, humming stimulates the vagus nerve. If you make voo, voo, so low voo sounds, apparently that'll stimulate your reptilian vagus system, your dorsal vagus nerve more, your crocodile part. But you can hum again, and probably, I think the Tibetans probably figured it out. Hum through tones. So go, you probably go through different tones, but humming slows your breathing down. The vibration's really good for your vagus nerve, and then also when you tend to use your diaphragm a bit more, and you produce more nitric oxide, which is a bronchodilator. So humming is fantastic. Okay. Long, slow exhales. So if I do resonance or cadence breathing, which is fantastic, it's on my Airy app. I have an app, by the way, called the Airy app, and there's level up breathing, which is fantastic for your resilience and your breathing patterns. And also you can do resonance breathing. Typically you want your exhales to be slightly longer than your inhales. So a resonance breathing pattern of 5 seconds in, 7 seconds out. And you can hum as well during resonance breathing. The other one, so long, slow exhales will sort of signify safety. The other one is soft eye gazing. Okay, so me looking up, looking back at the horizon, looking at the trees, looking at the vista. It's one of the reasons this podcast hopefully sounds relaxing, is because I'm outdoors in nature where it's more relaxing. Narrow focus, staring the screen, pinpoint pupils will all pull you out of your sympathetic state or healthy autonomic nervous system state, and tend to bias it towards sympathetic, and it also wrecks your breathing patterns. So we have screen apnea or email apnea. We hold our breaths when we look at screens and read emails. Looking in across a candle a candle at dinner into the eyes of a loved one will profoundly shift your perspective. Okay, holding eye contact with another human will profoundly signal safety and security and change your mental and emotional state. So vision is huge, but relaxing your face, laughing, down regulating, low light, no loud sharp noises, getting yourself into a safe space is really important. That's why flotation tanks work so well. Oh, I hope you can hear the birds. They are fantastic. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so now how do we impart these crawling patterns into our actual daily activities or life? Or perhaps you are an athlete and you want to know. Well, we can do the happy hip hack, the linchpin. Once you can do happy hip hack, you can do happy hip hack in backward walking. You can do happy hip hack with resisted or tire walking forwards, and you can skip with a happy hip hack. And that will almost ensure that those healthy patterns move into your running. You can do with weights, arms over your head. We like that because often without weights, you tend to use your hands a little bit too much, or your hands are forward. As soon as you have weights, you tend to really get your hands over your head and your hands over your shoulder and open up your chest. And you can walk with a happy hip hack pattern, and really strengthens your hips and that sort of connection between your shoulders and hips. And then the flow rope. Okay, and the flow rope's fantastic because you can learn the timing, the sequence, and your spinal engine. So that's going to bring us sort of close circle to the central generator patterns. So what are central pattern generators? I don't know, I kind of get dyslexic with these things. Have a glass of water then. Okay, so that brings us round to our central pattern generators. So what initiates us to crawl? Where does this even come from? And it's come from somewhere in the spine. And your spinal engine, or this animated sort of crawling pattern in your spine, that predates all the drama you've had in your life, okay, and your intrauterine trauma. So we know that sort of people that don't crawl often have, not exclusively and not massively, but well, can be massively, but not exclusively, have late on in life, can have coordination problems or not be as coordinated, or be slightly clumsy, or have breakdowns in their movement patterns, and even sometimes injuries, right? So crawling is a really, really good sort of healthy movement to develop a strong core, strong spine, healthy automated patterns, but it's our central generated patterns that really help. So if you were someone that never did sport at school, maybe you didn't crawl, maybe you had a very traumatic childhood, maybe you got poor posture, you really want to double down on your central pattern generators. And that would mean central generator patterns, central pattern generators, I don't know. I'm going to have to write it down like CPG and then memorize it and then learn it. Okay. Anyway, so you really want to double down on these, because they are going to be what's going to sort of bring out your authentic self and learn to trust your movement. Okay, so flow rope can really, really smooth out and make your running symmetrical and smooth, and you say, oh, that looks really, really balanced. One of the reasons is obviously you're animating your spine with its hundreds of muscles, okay, that really it should be the author of our movement, okay. But also we start to remember your central pattern generators predate all your trauma. So it's the clean signal, like if you bought a new computer and you boot it up and you're running, you don't have software conflicts and Adobe's not trying to crash your computer all the time. So basically, it's your clean booting up software that predates all the drama and all the trauma. And going after those central pattern generators and those movements is a really, really good idea. And that's crawling patterns, crocodile crawling and baby crawling, and contralateral movement and the flow rope. And, sort of really learning how to use your spine, your spinal engine. So really learning how to use your spine and your spinal engine will really help you with clean, authentic movement from the center out, and then your hands tend to fall into place and everything starts to fall into place. Remember in the beginning of the conversation I said One of the really interesting things about the happy hip hack is people's ankle alignment. So people's joints, like your hips come underneath you, your spine starts to decompress. The ankle alignment, the state of your nervous system all starts to clean up. And so you start to have very, very direct, connected, cleaner movement patterns. And you look at that and you say, that's something I like. So if you want to really move better and own that better space and not have it as someone else's external judgment, like, oh, your cadence is low or you need to do this or that, get after your central pattern generators, and that's like flow rope, crawling patterns. And again, these are powerful tools you can just implement and they'll just magically show up and you're running pretty darn quickly. Okay, so I hope I didn't botch that up too much and that wasn't too painful to listen. Please comment, especially constructive criticism. We want to get this better, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. I have built a YouTube studio, a podcast studio inside. I just thought it's such a beautiful day outside. I'd do the first one outside. Money can't buy this background. So I hope you like it, and let me know if you want to see the one indoors or outdoors, and any comments. If you like it, please share it. Podcasts there's a lot of them out there. So if you find this of benefit to yourself, I am going to ask you, please share it with someone else and try and give the initial podcast a bit of a boost. The tempo of podcasting will be probably 2 informative sort of lecture style or thinking about problems like this a month, and 2 interviews a month. The interviews will be long form, 90 minutes plus. We're going to get Drew Hunter on here because he's said I needed to do a podcast, so it's his fault. Dr. Rongan's allowed us to share his podcast, which at the time of the recording is dropping tomorrow, so we're pretty excited about that. So that'll be one, and then I've got a list of guests, and hopefully by the time this drops, I'll have pre-recorded at least 2 or 3 long-form interviews, conversations with people, conversations without agenda. I think it's really, really important. If you haven't got it, if I have to be blatantly obvious, one of the most important things humans can do is interact with other humans. And, as Dr. Robert Sapolsky says, it's easier to be changed than it is to change. Put yourself in the right environment. This environment will bring the best out of me. Being with friends that support and love you and don't judge you and just allow you to show up and express yourself is really, really healthy and really, really important. So look after and try and create those kind of environments for yourself to grow and flourish. And between that and these sort of powerful movement patterns, you're definitely going to experience a shift and an improvement in your life. So that's that. Thanks to my sponsors, Level Up Flow Ropes. This is the Level Up Podcast. Eldorado Water, who don't sponsor me, I buy this stuff. But that could be you. And from me and my orangeness and green, I'm going to tell you a little fun fact. I hate digital orange and black, but I do love orange glasses. And we'll do a podcast on circadian rhythm and orange glasses and light and how important it is. But like Strava, digital orange and black, it's my worst, man. It's kind of crazy. My best friend's best color is orange, and I don't mind wearing black and orange glasses. So anyway, with that rather vague comment, we'll sign off, and hope to see you soon. And move well, move authentically. You got to show up and just rock what you got, man. That's the most important thing. Hopefully, let me know if crawling pattern helps you rock what you got, so you can show up and express your authentic self in this world, because that is the most important thing you can do for your overall health and well-being, productivity and success.